Donald Trump says he will appeal against the guilty verdicts in his so-called hush money trial in New York. He was convicted on all 34 counts of falsifying business records in order to cover up payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels and illegally influenced the 2016 presidential election. Mr. Trump is the first former US president to be convicted of a criminal offence. Speaking at Trump Tower in New York after the case, he criticised the proceedings.
The judge allowed them to go into everything that I was ever involved in, not this case, everything that I was ever involved in, which is a first. But I'm out there, and I don't mind being out there because I'm doing something for this country, and I'm doing something for our Constitution. It's very important, far beyond me. And this can't be allowed to happen to other presidents. It should never be allowed to happen in the future. But this is far beyond me. This is bigger than Trump. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than my presidency. This is a scam. There's a rigged trial. It shouldn't have been in that venue. We shouldn't have had that judge.
Let's get more on this from our Washington Bureau Chief, Ines Paul. Welcome, Ines. So lots of blaming and self-pity from the former president.
Yes, indeed. So this is the first lengthy speech delivered by Donald Trump after the verdict. And he, of course, took advantage of this moment and of the attention he's getting for his campaign. So Trump repeatedly emphasized that he is fighting for Americans and not for himself. He also accused bad people of being responsible for his conviction and claimed that the judge was, I quote here as well, conflicted. So basically, what he was doing in this 45-ish minute-long speech is telling his followers to no longer believe in the democratic system of the United States. He explicitly said, and I quote him here as well, "We are living in a fascist state." I personally think this is quite concerning, especially when we think about the upcoming elections. He kind of is already laying the groundwork for a narrative that the elections will be considered stolen if he is not the winner. And I think we all remember the consequences of this narrative after last election, the storming of the Capitol.
OK, stay with us, please, Ines. We'll take a closer look at the verdict and then we'll come back to you.
Guilty on all 34 counts. Donald Trump, a man used to being front-page news, calling this verdict an injustice.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man.
But a New York jury disagreed. It unanimously found the former president guilty of conspiring to buy the silence of adult film star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election, and then falsifying business records to cover it up.
We did our job. Many voices out there. The only voice that matters is the voice of the jury, and the jury has spoken.
Go to jail! Go to jail!
Outside the courthouse, celebrations as the guilty verdict was announced.
I've been here for the last week. Guilty! I'm so happy.
But anger from Trump supporters.
It's a disgrace what happened here. I'm a native New Yorker. We support Trump. I never voted for him the first time, but we'll do it this time.
This is the first time a former US president has been convicted of a criminal offence, and it could mean jail. For most politicians, it would spell the end of their career. But this is Donald Trump, and instead he's likely to use this guilty verdict as campaign fuel ahead of November's elections.
Let's pick that up with Ines in Washington. So, Ines, what do you think? Will these guilty verdicts hurt Mr. Trump in this year's presidential campaign or help him?
that's really impossible to say right now. I mean, some Republicans who kind of were on the fence to vote for him may distance themselves from a convicted felon. Also, maybe the backing from young and non-white voters might be likelier to fade. But on the other hand, it's also possible that others really rally closer to Donald Trump because they believe that the trial was unfair and the accusations were kind of minor. I personally think the key question will be who, Biden or Trump, can mobilize more supporters to vote when November 5th come. And maybe anger and rage may be a more motivating factor. We shall see.
OK, thanks, Ines. Ines Pohl in Washington, D.C. So let's take a closer look at this with Federico Fabbrini, who's Professor of Law at Dublin City University. Welcome to DW. So big question number one, is Donald Trump going to jail?
Thank you for having me back to the program. So it's obviously a historic day. For the first time, as you said, a former president has been convicted of felonies and has been declared a convicted criminal. With that said, I think it's important from a legal point of view to consider 3 points. First of all, in the American legal system, the jury decides on guilt, but it will be the judge who decides on the sentence. And the judge has scheduled sentencing on July 11th, so we'll have to wait for a few more weeks before we know what the criminal sentence for former President Trump will be. It could be up to 4 years imprisonment, or it could be probation. Secondly, we should also be mindful that Trump is entitled to appeal the ruling by the first instance court, and during the appeal, the judge could stay the punishment, which means he might not ultimately serve jail time. And finally, also let me remind everyone that, of course, this trial is separated from 2 other federal criminal cases which are pending against Mr. Trump, as well as another state case that is pending in the state of Georgia. OK, so 34 charges that he was found guilty. How do you rate his chances of winning any appeal? In the American legal system, appeals tend to focus on procedural matters only, so they don't involve a discussion of the substance of the case. This is because of the jury trial. So it's likely that the appeal will mostly serve a delaying tactic for Mr. Trump. The sentencing could be significant. The judge has already indicated that he's taking white-collar crimes seriously. And under the law of the state of New York, the felonies for which Mr. Trump has been convicted could entail up to 4 years imprisonment. However, this is the first time Mr. Trump has been convicted in a criminal trial, so the judge might decide to opt for probation instead. Of course, the elections are also looming, but from a legal point of view, it's interesting to highlight that, of course, if Trump were to win the November election, he might not be in the position to pardon himself because this is a state crime. And so the federal president doesn't have the authority to pardon himself of a state crime as opposed to a federal one.
OK, that's very clear. Thank you so much for talking us through that, Professor. Professor Federico Fabbrini from Dublin City University.
Thank you very much to you.